Styled by Science CEOs is hosted by me, Megan Martis.
And me, Ayo Egby. We are young CEOs and founders of ventures in the clothing industry. I am the founder of Hangyo, a premium clothing care company.
And I'm the founder of Clovo, a natural undergarment company. With our shared backgrounds in science and engineering, we take a unique lens to talk about sustainability, representation, and innovation.
To do this, we bring on incredible changemakers in the clothing industry to grow awareness and positive change. Today, our changemaker is Hannah King, CEO and founder of Woven Futures. Hannah is an impact-driven social entrepreneur, and today she's going to be speaking with us about her story and her passions around socioeconomic empowerment and sustainability. Hannah, welcome to Styled by Science CEOs podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. So before we dive into your amazing company, tell us a little bit more about your story, your background, where you went to school, all of the spiels of who Hannah King is.
Yes, so I'm 20 living in Guatemala. I go back and forth. I went to school at Florida State, so go Seminoles. And I graduated a few years ago. I started my business when I was in college, so it's kind of been like on this journey of self-exploration with me as well. So when you talk about like being tied to your business, I know all about it. But I love to dance salsa. I love traveling. I love languages and cultures. It's part of the reason that I started my business. So, being someone that was born in Guatemala and moved to the US and like had this influence of my Latin culture and my dad's Greek culture, I think it really influenced just how I saw the world and the things that I wanted to do, and eventually also helped spark that desire to start something that represented my culture here in Guatemala. So and to give a little snippet of what Woven is, because I don't think I really delved too deep into it. Woven Futures is an ethical fashion brand that I founded. We work exclusively with artisans here in Guatemala to do everything from designing to producing and then selling these textile goods. So we started with textiles. We do everything from bags to accessories like headbands and scrunchies. And we're now expanding into ceramics, other types of materials, fanny packs, purses, home decor. So we do a little bit of everything.
Thanks so much for telling us more about yourself. That's really cool that you live in Guatemala. But yeah, definitely in connection to your background, how did Woven come about? Like, what's your founder's story?
Yeah, so I went to school to study international affairs. I wanted to focus on education in Latin America. When I was 7, we moved back to the US where my dad is from. And just growing up and going back and forth and seeing the difference between what life is like in both places, I think really gave me a lot of insight into things that we take for granted, like in the West or in like developed nations. And Guatemala is beautiful in so many ways, but there are a lack of resources for a lot of people in the rural areas. And so I went to school to study international affairs. I thought I wanted to be a teacher. All I really knew is that I wanted to help develop, contribute to a better Guatemala. I didn't really know how. And then I actually did an internship in Guatemala for teaching. And I realized that I am not a good teacher whatsoever. Like, I loved the kids, but I just hated being in the classroom. And I don't think it just was not my bread and butter, Uh-huh. And I admire teachers so much. But I just realized okay, this isn't what I'm meant to do. And it was actually on the weekends when I would go to the markets that I met a lot of artisans here and started getting to know them. I loved all their different items that they made. And that's kind of how the spark started. So I was going back to the US and I was going to buy some souvenirs for friends back home. And I bought a few things, and artisans were basically at this point, begging me to buy more. And so I started talking to them, just finding out why are you so desperate to sell your stuff? And I found out that tourism was really low that summer. And so, besides their local markets, they didn't have other avenues to sell their products. And that's where it popped into my head. Like, all this stuff is very boho like I've seen it in American Eagle, you know, for like $100 for this $5 bag. And I wanted to be able to connect these artisans. So in short, or I guess long-winded short, that's how everything started.
Wow. So you really like took your roots and like embody that into like what you wanted to eventually create. And that's so cool that you like listen to your intuition and also listen to yourself of like what wasn't working, and from there moved into like what did work eventually for you. So for you, where is Woven now? What does Woven stand for? And what does sustainability and socioeconomic empowerment mean to you?
And so Woven really stands for representing the culture here in Guatemala. I think there's a lot of people actually that are second generation Latinos or from other places or have moved that, you know, want to be able to stay connected with their culture and want to see it represented in their lives today. And so we're taking these very like traditional designs and techniques and blending them in with the modern world so that they can stay alive. And for me, socioeconomic empowerment, you know, means, you know, providing something for communities that will allow them themselves to continue on their traditions and their culture and their economies, you know, by themselves. I think there's a lot of organizations that use the handout model where they do a lot of donations, but, you know, fail to see the gap where people really need skill sets so that they can provide for themselves. And for me, sustainable work is the first way to do that, because you're putting the power in the hands of the people to change their own situation. And that's typically what has more of an impact.
That's super powerful, super powerful.
Yeah, wow, that's incredible to hear it. So, definitely sounds like you guys are very fair trade, very ethical. So that's very inspiring. Do you have any like specific stories from artisans about what Woven Futures has made like a difference in their lives for them?
So with our artisans, we partner with them and we're not their employers. And so this differentiation is important for us because most artisans, to give you an idea of like how what the dynamic is like here, they sell in the local markets or which they have to pay rent for, or if they can't afford rent, you'll see them as street vendors. And so that's kind of their main source of income. But again, they are having to like be privy to when tourism is high or low, or when the pandemic happened, they were shut down for 7 months. So like their main source of income was just wiped out completely. And so we made the decision to partner with artisans as clients so that they can also work with other businesses and keep selling in their markets. So what they make for us is completely exclusive designs that we sell on our website. And this is a way for them to expand their skills, right? But also keep selling their products and then start building their businesses. So, you know, they are their own entrepreneurs as well. And one of our main artisan partners, her name is Juana. She actually took over her cooperative from her mom. Her mom started it with, I think, like 3 women, and Juana's grown it to 23 women. So when we met her at the market. We saw some designs she had. We loved them. And so typically what we do is, you know, we see something and then we kind of try and figure out how we can improve it or how we can take that textile and put it into a design that we really like. And so we've been working with Juana for about 3 years now. So she does all our textiles. And it's been really amazing because over the course of working with her, we've seen her gain new brand partnerships. So other brands like ourselves. And she's also grown another 10 women in her cooperative. So it's really cool to see like just the continued growth. It definitely is a long-term approach that we take. You don't always see like a night and day difference, but just seeing them be able to grow their cooperatives and their business and stay in business, especially through a pandemic, is really meaningful for us. So that's one story.
Wow, and that's like such an interesting kind of like model to go about leaving an impact and empowering people, putting the power back in their hands and not just like giving them what they need, which I feel like
Yeah.
is more of like a long-term approach that will
Hmm.
be beyond just like this generation, but like the next generation, and so on and so forth.
Hmm. And I don't want artisans to feel like, this American is here and we work for her and we need to do whatever design she wants. Otherwise, we don't have work. And sadly, it is like that in a lot of instances because you have a lot of Americans that come down and see cheap prices and kind of take advantage of it. Um, and so we want it to be a partnership where you don't work for us, you work with us. Obviously, we still have to have like a business relationship, but we're growing side by side. And you're able to develop friendships with artisans. Being Guatemalan as well, I think there's a different level of trust that you have there. But we want artisans to outgrow us. It's like that's kind of our end goal as well, is to keep adding artisans to our group and then be able to move on as well.
Yeah, that's a super mindful approach, which is refreshing to see because I don't think that happens on a like wide scale in the industry. And another piece of it is that I think it's super dope that all of the designs are exclusive just to Woven. And guys, whoever's listening to this podcast, go onto our website right now because it's super cute. All of this stuff is super nice. And one thing I like that you guys do is like limited runs and you try and like sell all your inventory. And so there's like this like no waste model. Um, I had the pleasure of being able to get scrunchies, and guys, my hair is huge. Like I have braids, and so they are perfect. I have mine at my house. I don't have it right now, but they're perfect for my hair. Because a normal like hand tie will just break off because my braids are just so big. So yeah, great stuff. Megan?
Yeah, that's seriously incredible, like what change you're making in these people's lives. I guess from a personal perspective as well, like why was it like so important to you to have ethical manufacturing for the designs of the products that you make? Like why didn't you just go out and choose like a manufacturing partner versus artisans?
Yeah, well, to be honest, I didn't really know a lot about the sustainable and ethical fashion world until I started working with artisans. You know, if you want to manufacture something, like China's your place to go. And I know a lot of people that are like, I want something cheap that I can turn around and sell. And unless you're aware of the impact that that has, um, you don't really understand like, the negative repercussions that it can have. And so when I was here in Guatemala, I actually started learning about their weaving processes. I realized that there's not really many other places in the world where you can actually watch someone make something from start to finish without using chemicals, without using machines. And it's something that, I completely fell in love with, and I wanted to be able to share because a lot of people have never seen that. And where we get our clothes, like we don't ask, we don't ask questions. Brands have not done a good enough job either of telling us how things are made. But I just started learning more. I obviously started doing more research and realizing how many like harmful dyes go into our clothing and into the waterways of the communities where they manufacture. And so the more I learned about, the negative impacts that fast fashion has on the earth and on people, the more important it became to me to share, what we do at Woven. So inherently, artisans have always used natural dyes. Like we use beets, coffee, avocados, coconut, carrots to create dyes. And they're actually really strong dyes. They don't fade away. They shouldn't bleed. So you can actually, like we have everything that we need to make clothing, to make materials. But to be able to produce in larger quantities, we've obviously started mass manufacturing. And so for me, it's really important. I think also as an industry, we're bringing that back, right? The handmade approach. But it's really important to first educate people about it, but then also offer a solution. And so that's why we're trying to provide these items, spread awareness about it, and then help preserve those cultures too.
That's a really great point. And I think Woven does an incredible job. You and your team do an incredible job of the education piece. I've learned so much from your Instagram posts and also your website about like the impact of fast fashion and why it's important to invest in things that are made well and made ethically. And so I remember when I met you, Hannah, you were in college and I was in college, and I think it was maybe Katie from Future Founders that connected us. I'm not sure, or maybe get cold LinkedIn or
I
you or
think
something.
so.
Yeah. But I remember getting advice from you about building a business throughout college, how like effortless that you made it seem, and you shared but like also shared with me the ups and downs of what it was like to run a business in college. And so I think it's like a special kind of group of people that builds business in college because it's just not easy to do. And so can you share with us a little bit more about your experience building a business in college and then now running it post grad?
Oh my gosh, I love post grad so much. I would never want to go back.
I'm here, so I love it too. I can attest.
Well, so I started Woven like very early on, but it's gone through a lot of different iterations. So when I first came to Guatemala to do that internship where I met the Artisans, I was 19. It was the summer of my freshman year. So then it was really just an idea. And when I came back to school, I bought some things from Artisans. I had it in a box under my bed, and I was kind of like, what do I do now? I had no idea what to do. I didn't know if I was going to start a business. It was more of just that like thought there. But I actually found out about a competition that had a focus on social impact. And so that's how I got everything started. I applied to that competition, and they had a lot of different workshops on your business model. They required you to submit updates, to do pitches. And so having that structure really helped me, because if not, I feel like it would have been a lot harder to just like go out and do customer discovery and like build my website. But because I had to do it for this competition to win funding, I had a lot more like incentive and support too. So, I started off just with this idea, competing. I was able to win grant money and competition money to develop products, but it was really like 2 years of trial and error. Like at first, I was buying products directly from artisans from the market, so they looked very different from what we're making now. And that's when I started noticing, like, okay, the quality isn't the best because artisans are kind of making things quickly here to sell. So I need to start making my own products and start overseeing the production of it. Also, everything was one off. So it was very hard to take pictures, upload it on the website, because once one sold, like I had to do it all over again. And so, those early years of just experimenting helped me really figure out how I wanted my business to run. And like I said, it was a lot of trial and error. So I feel like the first 2 years in college, I was like just trying. I can't say that I felt like, oh, I'm running a business, because it just felt so chaotic. But, you know, the good thing about starting a business in college is that you have a lot of access to funding, you have mentors, you have all kinds of like programs. That's how I got involved in the Future Founders Fellowship. And so I definitely suggest it, because you have more resources than you ever will. And you also have a cushion. Like I had startup funding, I had scholarships in college. So I could comfortably focus on that without having to work and do different things. At one point, I was doing like an internship, doing Woven and going to school full time. So, and then working full time. I got a job full time like on my last year. So it got hectic and stressful. I mean, I can talk about burnout all you want, but I recommend starting a business in college, because you're not going to know a ton, but you're going to have a lot of space to like fail forward. And I think those years really influenced what Woven is now. Once I graduated, I quit my full-time job. I focused on Woven full-time. We actually did a rebrand. Like I sat down with my team and looked at like what do we want this business to be? What does it look like? Like, I never really had a brand. I had a little logo, but that was about it. So we got a full brand guide. Like, we revamped our collections, our design process, and now I actually feel like I'm running a business, you know? So it was definitely, again, like iterations that we went through.
Yeah, and it's just like amazing to see like your journey that you've taken all throughout college. You started your freshman year, and then now you took the leap of faith and went all into your business. And so that's just like amazing. If you had to give one piece of advice to someone who's in college now, let's say they're a freshman, or let's say it was you back a couple of years ago, what piece of advice would you give? Like what have you felt like has been the most kind of significant or impactful thing that you've learned across your journey?
As a business owner or like through college?
I think both.
Let me think about that for a little bit. I mean, for college, do everything you can. Like, I
Yeah.
got involved with so many student organizations. I did so many internships, like a ton of unpaid internships just for experience. I took all kinds of classes to see what I was interested in. And if I hadn't took that internship to go teach in rural Guatemala, I wouldn't have met the artisans that I did. So I do think that, like, you put yourself in places where you're going to meet the type of people that you want to be around. You're going to do the type of things you want to do, but you have to take that step. And I think it's easy for a lot of people to go to college and just do their classes and like try to socialize and go to parties. But for me, I had so much value in just getting involved in everything. So that's my like college advice. And then for business, like if you're wanting to start a business, do it in college. Apply to all the competitions, even if you don't know what you're doing, and even if you don't have a product yet, because in college, there's so much grace and people will fund ideas. Like mine was an idea that was funded. So don't be afraid. Don't have like analysis paralysis where you wait for everything to be perfect before you do it. Just throw yourself into it, and you always have to figure out how you're going to do it, but at least you figure it out instead of like being held back by like wondering what if this goes wrong, what if that goes wrong. So just throw yourself into it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I was the same way in college and definitely tried everything, joined every single thing I could. And also starting a business can relate to in college as well. But I know along my personal journey, there was definitely obstacles, especially being like a limited time college student. So I'd love to hear about some of the obstacles that you faced.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first one is just not knowing what you're doing. I went into an industry that I didn't know anything about. And, funding yourself is hard. And I had, competition money and grant money that helped, but it was still difficult when it's a product, a physical product that you have to do samples of and you have to pay thousands of dollars to export. Like,
Yeah.
it can get expensive really fast. So for me, I feel like I was limited in a lot of the growth that could happen because I didn't have the capital to like fully invest into a ton of exploration with our materials and our products. And I couldn't be in Guatemala full time either. So it's hard juggling everything. I mean, I failed a class 3 times just because I never went, because my last 2 years I was in time to come to Guatemala, and it's like things definitely start slipping through the cracks. Although by the third class, I knew everything, Um, but yeah, things started slipping through the cracks. Like I found myself not really caring about school that much, just because the things I was studying, like in theory, I was already putting into practice with my business. So I just found a lot more value in the education of doing than just sitting in class learning. But that's like my issues with the education system, But yeah, I definitely like it was hard to study. It was hard to get to all my classes while I'm spending hours applying for competitions and getting my pitch deck ready and then flying to different states to compete, and trying to work with artisans. And the biggest thing for me was just learning time management, and I did go through burnout a lot. I remember there was one night that I got home like at 6 p.m. and I didn't have anything to do. And usually like I was pulling all-nighters and like always stressed. And I remember that I just got so sad because I was like, what do I have? Like, I don't have anything to do. And I just felt so like empty. But that's because I was going, that it like almost became like part of my identity to be this like busybody that was stressed. And a friend and mentor of mine actually told me, like, we sat down and went through a list of all my responsibilities. And he was like, you have to cut stuff out. Like, you have to make time to eat well, to exercise, make time to call your mom. And he told me, like, after I started my nonprofit, after I was done with everything, I got depressed because you go, and you kind of like forget to take care of yourself in the process, and it does catch up to you. So I would say those are some of the challenges. It just takes an emotional toll on you, and then the time management, especially if you're working in addition to going to school.
Yeah, that is a lot. And outside of school being a perfect playground to start a business, it's almost like a double-edged sword because you have so much opportunity, you have so much like potential there, and definitely you're like relate to that burnout. I experienced like a lot of my probably my climax of burnout in 2019, and at that point I was like, I need to kind of pivot because this is not sustainable at all. So definitely resonate a lot with that, with what you said. Thank you for sharing a little bit more about your challenges. Now we want to go into our like last wrap-up question. We ask this to all of our guests. Our mission with this podcast is to spread awareness and also just highlight the impact that changemakers are making in this industry and they plan to make in the future. And so for you, what future impact do you hope to make in this space? Outside of woven or all the above, what is that impact that you want to make in the future?
For woven, I think that, well, I'm trying to figure out how to like summarize it all in one. I just hope that we can spread awareness and help people make small changes in their daily lives that together are going to be a ripple effect for our planet and for people. The things that you buy have an impact. Your dollars have so much power. And if people aren't aware of things, they're not going to be able to change. And so the first step for us is being able to offer an alternative to fast fashion and to give people an opportunity to be a part of that change. And so for us, it's just being able to see artisans thrive and grow here in Guatemala, eventually in other countries as well. And then, being that avenue for people to join us and to be able to start seeing ways to transform their life, not just in what they buy, but in what they put on their bodies and how they treat the planet. So I just hope that we can be that like domino effect for people's lives.
That's incredible. And I definitely see you guys being able to accomplish that. And I think that you definitely are already. And that kind of brings us to the end of the podcast where we talk about our main takeaways. So I think I had two main takeaways from you today, Hannah. The first being just how important it is to look for companies that manufacture ethically and especially fair trade certified ones. I think that's incredible and helping to change the fashion industry into a better, more sustainable and equitable one. And then the other side of it, and something that I think is like very is often overlooked as an entrepreneur, is like really taking a step back and making sure that you're taking care of yourself as well. I think that's super important. Yeah. I'm glad that you brought that up. But what about you, Io? What were your main takeaways?
Yeah, I think just for you, Hannah, you're like an embodiment of someone who's been super mindful about how you carry out your business. And you're like a reminder to me of how business can really be a positive force for good. Like, yes, it's great to make money. Yes, it's good to hit our targets, but also it's like business has a powerful force to just like change people's lives. And it doesn't have to be like this grand kind of plan. I mean, in the end it is, but like it starts small. So it's probably like the biggest thing I took away. And then the other piece also, as Megan was saying, is just taking care of yourself. And I even think whenever you hit like the thresholds, and then you learn that the hard way, It's a reminder as an entrepreneur to continue to take care of yourself and to pace yourself along the way, because it really is a journey. And seeing that you started your business in freshman year and now you're doing it full time, it didn't happen overnight. Like, it took time to build. And so it really is just like pacing yourself and taking care of yourself along what your end goal is. And so, Hannah, I just want to share, we want to share a huge appreciation for you. We learned so much and think that our listeners are going to take away so much from you. Listeners, let us know what you learned, what you took away, how you were inspired by this episode with Hannah. Leave us a review, leave us a comment. We'll have our email in the bio, so feel free to email us. We'd love to hear from you. We are super excited that you're listening, and we can't wait to see you next time on our next episode of Styled by Science CEOs. Thank you.